Training event where we're going to be looking at iGyro and some of the features there. We run this training every Friday afternoon for builders that are both looking at our software as a solution for job management, and also existing users that are trying to improve the implementation into their business. So just while we're waiting for other attendees, Darren, can you just confirm that you can hear me clearly? See my screen, and just type in there, thank you. And we record these sessions so that if you're struggling to understand anything, the recording's on YouTube, and that way you'll be able to implement it yourself in the future. This afternoon I want to talk about quoting. Quoting is a real challenge for builders because you've got a lot of different suppliers that you need to get different information to quote on your jobs, and secondly, the quotes that are coming back into the business, if you're just using email to manage that, then you've got a lot of quotes attached to email, and you try to work out where to store that information, and then when you want to sit down and quote the job yourself, then you've got to sort of pull all that information together and try and compile it and prepare a quote. It's messy, it's time consuming, it needs a system, and so we've written a system, and that system's in Gyro, so I'm happy to share that with you this afternoon, how that works. The other, the other observation is that with every system you put in place, if you can understand it and use it, then it's easy to bring staff on to help your business. And of course, you never want to have a staffing solution. You always want to have a system solution. And this system for quoting, Tim just reminded me earlier today that he wrote this system nearly 10 years ago, and the functionality is still great, and it's saved countless man hours in various building businesses across the country. So let's jump into it and see how it works. And if there's any questions, we can answer those as we go along. So the idea, this is the main menu for Gyro, and I'm just going to click on the Jobs tab at the top. I'm in a demo database here, and I've identified a job here that you'll see one of the tabs across the top here is the quoting tab. Now, the quoting tab introduces the functionality that we're going to talk about today, but I don't see enough use with our existing users, which is why I'm drilling down on it today. So it's just called the Quote Request tab that you can see I'm clicking on there. And of course, this is pre-populated, but for many of you, there'll be nothing in this tab. But I wanted to show you this as the starting point, because once a little bit of setup work is done, quoting is no harder than clicking on the file at the top, clicking on a file further down the page, and then right-clicking and sending the quote request. So you can see if I did that now, 10, 15, 20 quote requests can go out with one click of a button, and that's your quoting task done. And so I'm sure you can imagine, as you look at that list, the time it takes you to prepare quote requests in more traditional ways, where it's supplier by supplier, attaching the information. It's messy and time consuming. So again, all I'm doing is either individually right-clicking and sending the quote request, or I'm selecting the whole page by holding down the Shift button on my keyboard, and then I can just send the whole page by right-clicking and sending the quote request. Obviously, I'm not going to do that, but that's the end game. That's what we want to get to for your business, that sending out the quote request is as easy as that. Now, to set that up, obviously, we go back a few steps to set that up correctly, and the initial setup starts here in Business Contacts. Everyone that you're sending a quote request to needs to be in Business Contacts. So in Business Contacts, you've got this database has got a sizable list of contacts, but your own database will have some contacts, and need to add contacts as you go, people that you would like to request quotes from. And so that's quite obvious. Up here on the right-hand side, you click on New Company to create a new company, enter the details, which, if including an email address, will allow the functionality of quoting to work. Now, what's really important here is that the local government area that you work in, and for the sake of this example, I'll use the Coffs Harbour City Council, but this needs to be specific, of course, to your local government area where you're doing building work. Once you've entered the name of the local government area, in the industry here, you identify to Xyro that they are a consent authority. Very important, because what identifying them as a consent authority allows you to build this supplier list here. So the first step in this process is simply to say, these are the suppliers that I get quotes from in my consent authority. So you can see here a list has been created, but again, if the list was blank, all you're doing here is on the right-hand side, pressing the plus button and entering the company details of the supplier that you'd like to add. And there's suppliers that have been previously entered here. So the steps here: enter the details of the supplier you would like to get quotes from, enter, which is step one. Step two, enter the local government area that you would like to, where you're building. And if you're building in a number of local government areas, you might need to use different suppliers for different areas if you've got a big geographic spread. Either way, enter the local government area and then put the suppliers in the suppliers tab for that local government area simply by pressing the plus button on the right-hand side here. So once you've entered the business contacts and you've connected them with the local government area that you're building in, you come back to the job that you want to do some quote requests in, and you connect that local government area with that job. So here you can see the consent authority is the Coffs Harbour City Council. So straight away, Xyro knows that the job, of course, is in that area, and who the suppliers are going to be that you would need to get quotes from. Now, creating a new job won't cover all that today, but needless to say, if you didn't have a new job, if you didn't have the job, you'll come up to the right-hand side there and create the job. This job's previously been created, the consent authority's been identified, the Coffs Harbour City Council, which means when I go to my quote request page, if I apply the template here, again, I won't do that, but that will simply pull the names of all the suppliers from business contacts onto this page that you previously identified. Now, if I apply the template again, it'd just pull the names in twice. No harm done, but for the sake of the exercise, the template's previously been applied, and that's now given me comprehensive list of suppliers for this local government area. Now you can see I don't recommend that you get 5 quotes for frame and truss, but in this database there is in fact 5 local suppliers that provide frame and truss, and there might be circumstances where you get that many quotes. Of course, you wouldn't always do that, and maybe that's a bit hard on suppliers getting that many quotes. Now, the beauty of Xyro here is it's going to send attachments, standard attachments with each of these quotes, and the attachments are identified here. So you've got both, these have been pre-established, so Xyro knows what it is you want to attach each time, and it's attached as a hyperlink. So there's not, the actual attachment isn't going out with the email is going out with a hyperlink in it, so the supplier can simply click on that link and download the documents they need to prepare the quote. So there's a little bit of setup required here, and to do that, you're doing that in the admin tab. So remembering we started in business contacts to set up the names of the suppliers we're going to use in the local government area. Just to recap on that, I've set up the names of the suppliers I want to use in the local government area here, and I've said that the local government area is a consent authority, and I've nominated the suppliers for that consent authority. Once I've done that, I can come into the admin section here, and you'll see there's two things we need to look at here. One is the quote templates, and what this is the standard things that you say on the quote request. So see, for example, here, wastewater treatment plan, please quote on the following details. In Gyro will pull these details in when the quote's prepared. Please quote for a wastewater management system, etc. Now, if you said, okay, I don't like the standard template, I want to be more specific around my requirements for each of these things, you simply come in here and make an edit and save it. Importantly, keep this section here, particularly this part here, which allows the supplier to click and upload the quote. And we'll demonstrate that in a minute, but that's some of the power of this system, that a supplier can just load the quote back into Gyro for you. Very clever system, and suppliers that you use regularly soon become familiar with the fact that they're not to send the quote back to your email address, they're to load it into the software themselves. So you can simply copy and paste this from previous email if you want to make changes. So each one of these, there's different things that have been set up over time by various estimators, but you'll see them in here, and you can simply make edits to what's been communicated there. Going back, so that's the quote templates, what's being said, and with each of the cost centres, again, it's exactly the same list. These cost centre lists are common across the database. You can identify what you would like attached to a job. So picking on an example like the rainwater tank, we've told Gyro that with purchase orders, we're going to attach construction plans, the site establishment plans, and the site safety rules. And if we want to tell Gyro what we want to add to the quote request, now in this case, we haven't had quote request attachment set up because the rainwater tank would likely be in your price file anyway. But if we go to something that is regularly quoted, and the frame and truss is a good example, if I can see that there, timber frame and truss, we've got, these are the things that are attached to the quote request, and they're preset here. So you simply look at the things on the right hand side here and say, okay, I would like to attach each time to my quote request the council plans, and of course that's already on there. Click on the name of the file here, green arrow brings it across, and now it's there in that. Gyro knows to always attach the council plans to the timber frame and truss quote request. So you can use the drop-down menu here to move that down to quote request rather than council plans if you wanted it to appear in that area, and of course it already is in that area. So we'll just delete that out by highlighting it, and the delete button here will achieve that. So this is why you set up your cost centres, and advise Gyro in what standard things you would like to send to the people you request quotes from. So you can see that there's some work in that. There might be an hour of work to set that up so that you've properly identified what suppliers you'd like to use. You've identified what you would like to attach and what you would like to say, and now you're ready to send a quote. Now, if I want to just send this individually, I can open it up, and here's an example here. I can open that quote request up, and I can see who I'm sending it to. I've used my own email address here. I've taken out the supplier's email address so I don't bother them for the sake of our demonstration. And I can then press send and send that individually. So that has been sent, and I've got a record here of when the quote was requested. So you can see in the list there the dates of that request, and I've requested a number of quotes this morning from Glenn Leet, who's been quite active in preparing quotes. So what does that look like for a user of that? What happens is someone that receives this email, they'll receive an email that looks like this. Quite straightforward. Please quote on the following, and the email you've pre-prepared there, and the option there at the bottom to upload the quote. Now we'll click on that because it's important to see what the supplier's seeing, and what the supplier's seeing is an invitation to load their quote into the quoting system. So if they put their own email address there, Jira will show them the jobs. And if there was multiple jobs, there would be a list of those here. In this case, there's only one job, demo job. And you can see it's quite straightforward. They choose the file they'd like to upload and make whatever comment they like, and then upload the file. So from a supplier's point of view, I think the system's quite easy to navigate. And if you're wondering where that appears back in Jira, it appears back in your attachments. So Jiro's got this attachment hierarchy of folders that are named to reflect the type of attachments that might appear in them, and one of them is pricing products quotes. So here you can see a quote has been uploaded to the system, the date it's been uploaded, and it's ready for you to use to prepare either a bill of quantities or a quotation for the job. So if I go back into the quote request, I can also see there that I have received a quote from that supplier on that date for that job. So really quite easy to see at a glance if I need to follow someone up, or that I have received quotes. Now in this environment, once you've received a quote, then you can look at whether you're accepting that quote, drag it into your accepted quotes folder, or in your description here, mark that it's a quote you plan to use, and really improves the efficiency of this whole system. So Darren has given us a question: can they upload multiple attachments? Darren, I believe the answer to that is yes, but I would have to bring in my brains trust there, given I haven't had that task. Let me attempt that live here, and we'll see if we can upload multiple attachments. I'm going to select a couple of attachments and do the upload. And we'll just give that a minute and see what comes in. Now, a lot of suppliers might benefit from just attaching their quote into one file if that's not the case. But what I'm going to do, Darren, is just see if I can unmute you to see if you see an opportunity that suppliers would need that functionality, because of course we're always looking for ways to improve Jira. You able to talk there, Darren?
Yeah, sure. So I guess the reason why I think I've seen it happen where you've got someone like Bunnings, or here I might have Langs, who will send through multiple different quotes. If you're asking for cladding, you're asking for frame, you're asking for truss, they're typically going to have all those on separate sheets.
Yeah, okay. So remembering that they're already broken up into cost centers here, so you're trying to get the frame quote in a different setting to what you may be getting the cladding for your lockup here. So I guess you'd be trying to educate your supplier to upload to reflect the cost center hierarchy. If they lumped it all in one, that probably wouldn't work as well with this system.
Okay.
But I think the short answer is that it's one attachment. Yeah. So there hasn't been a big call to quote claddings, because we've tended to have square meter, and linear meter rates for those products. But certainly the frame and truss needs quoting. So yeah. If you do see need for that, then very happy to look at how we can improve the software to support that. Any other questions? All right. Well, if there's no other questions this afternoon, I hope that's been a help to you. And every Friday afternoon, we're going to be looking at different features of Gyro and how to implement those in your business. Today